month, NASM is giving you free courses. That's right, free courses each month just for being part of the NASM family. Learn about everything ranging from nutrition to strength, weight loss to stress relief, and everything in between. Click the link in the bio for information and to claim your free course before they're gone.
Hey everyone, welcome to our Strong Mind, Strong Body podcast. I'm your host, Angie Miller, and today is part 2 of our series on the Enneagram. And why am I so smitten by the Enneagram? Well, I'm super into emotional intelligence. I'm teaching a whole session on emotional intelligence at Optima this year. And I really think it's important that as fitness pros, we understand and have greater insight into ourselves, that we have some emotional intelligence, how we interface with the world around us. We're people. We're sometimes people pleasers, but our whole profession is built on building relationships with people. And what better way to do that than to start by having personal insight? We do not understand other people until we understand ourselves. So today, again, is part 2 of the Enneagram. And honestly, I couldn't be more excited. I super geek out over this stuff. So I am not an Enneagram expert. I'm just an Enneagram lover and a personality test lover. But I have somebody on here who is. And she was with us last week if you want to catch up with that episode. But her name is Janna Thomason. She is a nurse and she is an Enneagram coach. And I'm going to bring her on and have her introduce herself. Hey, Janna, how are you?
Hi, Angie. I am excited to be here. Yeah, so I'm Janna Thomason. I have been a nurse for 20 plus years. I'm aging myself, but I've always been fascinated with understanding people, why people do the things they do. And then I kind of went back to why I do the things that I do and really did some deep self-discovery work and love sharing it with other people on how you can determine your growth, your path of growth, of transformation, as well as self-discovery.
All right. Well, Janna, in our previous episode, you had talked about how you had lost your dad and your husband was sick and you were going through a real phase of burnout. And I talked about how I do think that those are pivotal moments for all of us. Often through loss, through hardship, through difficulty, we do start to experience burnout because our work is impacted and we start to ask all these questions like, am I doing the right thing? Am I making an impact? Am I in the right place? Is this the right thing for me? Because we're not really sure. Is it the hardship itself that's impacting us? Or are we truly burnt out? Or we burn out on life? And so I think once again, because we're in a global pandemic, and just when we all thought we were going to come out of this, here we are again. And we have a lot of different ways that we're moving about the world with other people right next to us, and they think very differently. And there's a lot of strong opinions about a lot of issues in our world right now. And so I think that this is a powerful time to do a deep dive into understanding emotional intelligence and all the ways that we can grow with that and have more empathy for ourselves so that we can show up more empathetic for other people. We don't have to agree or align with them, but what about just a little bit of understanding and empathy that we all move through the world differently? So, Janna, did I do that right? Kind of explain what your impetus was for understanding the Enneagram?
Yes. And what's so encouraging about the Enneagram is it gives us this really amazing grace and compassion, number one, for ourselves, but also for people that we interact with. It gives grace and compassion to them as well, so that we can understand that, it wasn't, personally towards us, that they have these motivations and these ways that they act. And it allows a lot of grace. And I think our world could use a lot of grace and compassion right now.
I do too. And, and that's the thing, is that it's not personalizing other people, because it's understanding that they have these different types of personality, and it's that nature versus nurture thing. Some of it we're born with some of these characteristics, we develop some of these characteristics or our value system, But at the end of the day, any kind of inventory, whether it's a Myers-Briggs or anything, but Janna and I are especially smitten by the Enneagram. And again, since I'm teaching this session at Optima on emotional intelligence, I thought this was a perfect time to come on and talk about a good inventory that we can all use. And last week we started with the 3 centers of intelligence. And Janna, I'm going to have you, if you would, do just a quick down and dirty review of what those 3 centers of intelligence were, so that we can then talk about the 9 personality types, because we want you to understand that even if you haven't taken the Enneagram, and even if you never take the Enneagram, listening to these episodes is going to give you insight. You're going to hear people that you know, you're going to hear yourself, and we're going to give you some insight into what that means in your relationships with these people, right? So stay with us, because you're going to love this. All right. So Janna, tell us about the 3 centers of intelligence.
Yeah, so we actually have 3 centers of intelligence in our body. We have the head that we're all familiar with, which is the head center of intelligence. We have the gut, and we have the body, and then we also have the heart. So the heart, I always start with the heart. They're all about connection and approval, affection. They're very driven by feelings, image, and that negative fixation that you might hear them say is I'm not worthy. But they're all about connection and relationships. The head centers of intelligence people, they are all up in their head. They analyze, they strategize, they work through the world with mental activity. They process by thinking and planning. It's all about security, survival, and that negative fixation that they struggle with is that fear and anxiety of I won't have enough, or I have to have enough to feel safe. And then lastly, we have that gut or that body center of intelligence, and it's all everything is through that instinctual feeling. This is the doing center of intelligence, and so they respond directly from that gut. Honestly, it's all about power and control, and that negative fixation that these types struggle with is that anger and guilt. You might hear them say, I've had enough, or I've done enough, or I haven't done enough. And so they feel everything through that intuition or that gut space.
Okay. So again, I'm talking to Janna Thomason. She's a nurse and an Enneagram coach. We're talking about why we as Fit Pros could benefit from taking the Enneagram, or at least understanding the Enneagram, hearing the 3 centers of intelligence and the 9 styles. So just a quick review. We've got 3 centers of intelligence. We've got the heart, we've got the head, and we've got the body. And also one thing we mentioned in the previous episode is we don't only navigate our world through one of those. We have to be able to be flexible. Sometimes, so the head person, I think my husband's a head person. So he is all into protecting his heart. He doesn't like to be vulnerable. He navigates the world through knowledge and facts. And it translates to he wants security. He thinks about finances and survival. And sometimes that can come across as fear and anxiety. It's always having to have a plan. Those heart people have a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings. They want affection and approval, but sometimes that can translate to fear and am I worthy? And so there's a good and a bad to all of these. And then those body gut people, they want power and control, and sometimes that translates to anger. They move through the world a lot through instinct. But again, we aren't just one of these. We don't navigate just from our head, our heart, or our gut. We would be better served to be able to focus on, hey, if I know my husband is a head person, and if I know, let's say I'm a heart person, then I know that he's not being rude or dismissive. I know that he is just a person who's up here. And so it might be hard for him to tap into what's here. And that gives me some opportunity to have empathy for him and to not have expectations of him that he maybe can't deliver. What do you think of that, Janna?
Yeah, I think that's a great spot to be at. And another thing that you could encourage him, to step into his heart space as well. And then you meet him in his headspace, and just understanding that is where he's coming from is very, very insightful and can help with relationships. And you might even notice that similar, if many times people have the same conflict over and over and over, it's the same fight. And so the Enneagram can help you kind of pick differently and to come at it from a different angle and maybe make a different choice where you don't have to have that same conflict over and over.
Okay, awesome. So let's get into those 9 personality
Okay.
styles. And again, fitness pros, I want to say to you, whether you're a group fitness instructor or you are a personal trainer or a small group trainer, I really want us to be the change agents because I really think we are. I think now more than ever, people are listening to fitness pros. They want to become more healthy on the outside, but that translates to more healthy on the inside. Our emotional health and our physical health are very highly linked together. And so I think that we can be change agents, and our understanding and acceptance of other people can go a long way. And I hope that this fosters that. I hope this lays a foundation for personal insight so that we can have compassion toward ourselves and other people. So, because I think it would have a positive influence on our work. I talked in the last episode about how I stick with one dentist, I stick with one doctor, I build relationships with people. It's what sustains businesses, and we are a business, and what will sustain our business is people being able to build a relationship with us. But if we put who we are onto other people and expect them to navigate their world according to our rules, then it's going to be really hard for our clients to want to stay with us versus a trainer who really embraces and accepts them for who they are, right? So let's deep dive into those. Janna, can you start with those 9 styles? Because I know what style I am and I'm dying to talk about it.
Yes. So as you listen to these 9 different types of number, it's really easy to assume that like somebody that you're close to. But I do want to encourage you that the Enneagram work first and foremost is all about knowing yourself. And so you may hear some things in here that aren't like your favorite qualities about yourself. And I want you to sit with that and have curiosity about that. And not everything may sound like you, but if you find that most of the things that I talk about with a certain type, that may be where you need to investigate a little bit further. So I encourage you to kind of take a deep breath and to have an open curiosity. So we're going to start at the top. Type 1, these are called the reformer or the perfectionist, and they bring goodness to the world. So they seek perfection in the world, and they want to constantly try to improve themselves, everything around them. They're self-controlled, quick to judge, and they spend lots of energy trying not to make a mistake. Many times they might be seen as overly critical of others, but they really are their own worst critic. They are searching for protection and correctness. And you might even hear words like should, ought, must. They have a very large to-do list for themselves, and they may even have a to-do list for you. So the communication style for this type, they want to know what is right and correct, and their drive is to be right and to improve. So as you're thinking about your clients, these are the reformers. They want to make everything right and good.
All right. Oh, go ahead. Did you want to move on or
No, I was going to move on. You tell me.
All right. Well, perfect. So let's sit with that one for a minute, because it's interesting. When I took the Enneagram, I didn't end up as a 1, and I thought for sure I was going to. Because perfectionism is my frenemy. Okay. So I really struggle with it a lot. Being not overly critical of others, but overly critical of myself, and striving to get it right. And I should myself a lot, and I must myself a lot. And so I want to improve by always having the best work out there. And so I hear that type 1s, they want to improve the world. They want to make the world a better place. They want to show up and do things the best that they can, but sometimes it can come across as being critical of themselves and of others, because it can translate to a lot of shoulds. So I think, how'd I do on that one?
You did a great job. And, just to remember, like, we all have types or we all have characteristics of every type.
Yes.
And so really, when you think about this, think about the motivation behind it. So they're all motivated to bring perfection and goodness to the world. So we all can have perfection tendencies, but just to kind of really look at that motivation.
I like that, to think about it in terms of motivation, because that really is the foundation of the Enneagram is what is our motivation to do, say, what is our motivation to show up in the world the way that we show up, right? And motivation is huge. And this is again why I chose the Enneagram, because we as trainers are so driven by motivation. What motivates our clients? Well, understanding our personality and being able to kind of hear some of our clients in here, we get a better idea of what motivates them. And if we have a client that is motivated to perfection, they want to hear constant feedback that they're doing things well. They need that feedback, right? If I'm hearing you right, Janna.
Yeah.
So again, I'm talking to Janna Thomason. She's a nurse and an Enneagram coach. We're talking about the 9 types. We've already talked about the 3 centers of intelligence. We're talking about the 9 types. And right now we're on type 1, and we're understanding the motivations behind what we do, but also maybe gaining some insight into our clients. So if I had a client who was a type 1, Janna, I hear you say that perfection, my guess is that would translate as if I'm that person, I want to be told I'm doing it correct. Does that make sense?
Yes. That
Okay.
you're doing it correct, you're not making a mistake, and that the improvement is big.
Yes. Is this kettlebell swing good?
Yes.
All right. So let's move on to type 2.
Okay, yeah. So the type 2s are called the helpers, and they bring love to the world. They want to be liked, and they focus their attention on meeting the needs of others. They look for cues from others to determine the degree to which they're appreciated. They value and are attracted to love. They want to be generous people. They want to make the world a better place, a better loving place to live in. Harmonious, intimate relationships are what life is all about, but can often be resentful and feel taken advantage of, and forget that their own needs matter. Sometimes might be seen as overly helpful or smothering. And many times they're going to ask how you are. And so get attention off themselves and onto another person. So 2s are amazing at making others feel comfortable. And their communication style might be what's helpful. And then they have a drive to love and to be loved and to express feelings to others. So they might look like so very appreciative that you're helping them with, on their journey of health.
Okay. So when I hear it too, I think about, they want to bring love and they want to be loved. But they look to others a lot for approval and appreciation. So they maybe get a little bit of their self-worth through the eyes of other people. And that can be hard to navigate the world that way, because if we're looking for approval from other people, especially in the world the way it is today, we may not get that readily, right? But they're very impacted by intimate relationships, but they can also be resentful. I think of the 2s, and I could be crossing a line here. You can pull me back if you want to. And all of us are a little bit of this, but a little bit codependent. They need to be needed and they need this approval from other people, but then they can get resentful that other people are always leaning on them. Does that sound like a 2?
Yes. And what that looks like. So we understand that. And then what the growth path is to go, my needs do matter. And I can use my voice to say, I need some time away, and I'm going to say no, and I'm going to put up boundaries. So that's kind of that growth path of each type, is to be, we see these characteristics, but then how do you improve, or how do you grow in that?
Okay. I love that, because you're talking about the motivation behind that personality type, but also how can we grow? And I like that you call it a growth path, because at the end of the day, we are often wired to look at personality as defective or good. It's not defective or good. There's just ways that we can grow in our personality. We all have things that trigger us. We're not defective. And I don't want us to think that our clients are defective or that the rest of the world is defective. We just have areas of our personality where we can grow. And that's what emotional intelligence is all about. So a growth path for that person who might be more codependent and needing attention and affection from other people could be to realize that my needs matter, and I sometimes have to get that from within. All right?
Exactly.
Perfect. So let's move on to type 3.
Okay, so type 3s are the achievers, or the effective. They bring efficiency and competence. So they want to be productive people seeking to make the world a better, more efficient place to live in. They love to bring projects to completion. It's all about accomplishing goals and working effectively. They have lots of energy and are savvy. But when they don't have goals, they don't have energy. They're many times motivated by external applause. Some people say that America is a type 3 country. Threes are great multitaskers. They have trouble with downtime because they don't know what to do or who they are. So they maybe were rewarded in their childhood for achievement or completion. And they help motivate the rest of us. They can be shapeshifters and tend to be who they think people around them want them to be. So they struggle with knowing their type. And they communicate, though, energetically and assertively. And their drive is to have success and to be admired.
All right. So when I hear a 3, I think about, those high achievers, and they always have to have goals. And if they don't have goals, then they probably start to lose they don't want to put their feet on the floor in the morning because they always have to be working on something.
Yes.
They always have to have a bunch of irons in the fire because they're multitaskers. And I understand that personality type quite well. I can get into those realms myself. And so if we thought in terms of motivation, I think I hear you say, Janna, that a 3's motivation is achievement. What's their growth path?
Their growth path is to realize that achieving and all of those goals aren't what fulfills them. They need to figure out who they are. Their passion or their vice is deceit, and that's deceit to themselves because they put on this persona of I have to achieve. And so when they come to the present and start to look at who they are in the present and who they are, that's where they can start to grow. And it's hard for them because they just want to be like, okay, let's fix this. I want to do this.
Okay.
And so they struggle with coming to the present. They're always kind of forward or future focused.
I like that because I do. And I work with clients who are very achievement. And the minute one achievement is done, they got to move on to the next one. And a lot of fit pros are like that. I get this certification. Okay, now I got to get the next one. I got to get the next one. And if they're not working on something, they don't feel personally fulfilled. But sometimes that is a pivot. It's kind of a scapegoat. Like, let's not really deep dive into who I am and just feeling worthy without having to have that worth based on achievement all the time. Just being good enough to be good enough, right? And I hear that as the growth path. Does that sound right?
Yes. That is
all right. So let's move on to type 4.
Okay, so type 4s are the individualists or the creatives, and they bring creativity and beauty to the world. They desire to feel special and to have this unique life, and they have emotions, and especially painful ones, they play out really powerfully in their lives. They truly have never felt understood by others, even though it's one of their deepest longings. And they have this unique ability to be present to the needs of others. They can sit in pain. Sometimes they desire for someone to rescue them from these deep feelings, and they tend to focus on what's missing. This is a complex number, and it's probably one of the most uncommon. They really want to be seen and to feel special. Sometimes they can get energy from what's tragic. Sometimes their moods can shift 3 to 5 times an hour is what the research that I've seen. They can pick out somebody that's inauthentic immediately. And their communication style could be reserved and or dramatic. Their drive is for connection and expression of feelings and moods.
Okay. I read about 4s because, of course, when I do these things, I always have to Google and find out the rarest type and find out if I'm that person. And so I read about the 4s, and it talked about, they're very individualistic. They're very creative, and they're very emotive. Oh my goodness, emotive. And they don't feel understood, but they really, really, really want to be understood. And so their crux or their axe to grind is that they're looking for deep understanding, but they don't ever really feel like other people get them. And so they can come across as kind of moody, and maybe they're reserved because they're withholding. They're not really sure that they can, trust or that other people are going to understand them. And, or it can be very dramatic, like, presenting themselves in a way like, darn it, understand me. And if you don't, then I'm going to be very dramatic in my behavior so that you do have to take notice. Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What's a growth path for them?
A growth path for them is equanimity. So being okay with the mundane and the normalcy, and being they're very past driven. So coming to the present and starting to think of future. So.
Okay. So being okay with the way things are, kind
Mhm.
of just finding steady state, not having to be very dramatic or not having to be withdrawn, not having to have all these different moods, but being okay with being okay.
Mhm.
And that's a big one, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay to be okay
Yeah.
and to
Yes.
sit with being okay for a bit, that things don't have to be up in arms or go the reverse. So, and I would say that their motivation is to be understood. All
Yes.
right.
Yes. And
So
to
let's
build.
go on to type 5. I
Yeah.
love
So
this. I hope you all are loving this. I hope that you're seeing yourself, seeing your clients, and I
Mhm.
hope that it's helping you to gain greater emotional intelligence so that we can help make the world a better place.
Yes. Okay. So type 5s, they are the investigators or the observers, and they bring wisdom to the world. Their deepest desire is to know that they're capable. They gather information in order to master particular subject matters. So their inner world of ideas and analysis is many times safer than emotions or the feelings of others. They have the ability to see possibilities and to put them into really clear steps and sequences. May be seen as distant and disconnected. Um, Not usually aggressive. They like time alone and they desire predictability. Many times they're rational and sometimes they think everybody else is irrational. And you might even hear them say, I think I feel. Everything is interesting to them. They are loyal. They keep secrets. They love you by supporting you. And many times they start the day off with a battery that's half full. And so every encounter that they have, it sometimes takes energy away. And their goal is to get home before they run out of energy. And their communication style is expressed through ideas or theories. And their drive is to observe, know, analyze, and understand.
Okay. So these type 5s, they're investigative. They observe the world around them. They're always aware of what's going on and they're looking at possibilities, but sometimes they can seem disconnected. I would imagine they're in their head a lot, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
They're probably in their head a lot if
they're
they're
in
kind
their
of
head.
looking around and observing the world, which makes them seem kind of distant. They like predictability. They like things to be kind of steady state. I imagine that allows them to stay up in there and kind of observe things from a distant view, but they're also very loyal and they keep secrets. So what's a growth path for them?
A growth path for a type 5 is knowing that there will be enough and to step out of their head and to be present with people and to engage.
Okay. So be able to engage, be able to go into the party and not just observe everybody and
Mhm.
creep everybody out in the corner, but to actually talk to everyone and be a part of it, right? And to know that it's okay to be a part of things and to be present. So again, this is Janna Thomason. We're talking about the Enneagram and how it's so beneficial for fit pros and how it can build our emotional intelligence. She is a nurse and an Enneagram coach. So let's move on to type 6, Janna.
Yeah, so type 6 are the loyalists, and they bring loyalty and they are very dutiful. So they're cooperative, trustworthy, sometimes to a fault, can be anxious, and sometimes others can be frustrated with their indecisiveness. They're also called the questioner or the devil's advocate. They need to feel certain and secure, and they have a really tendency to look at authority and question. They ask lots and lots of questions. So if you come out with a plan, they may have like 50 questions to ask you. They have a strong need for control, and they are always thinking of that worst case scenario. They always have kind of a plan in the back of their head, but they are the glue that holds the world together. Many times, type 6s are police officers, fire departments. They think everybody else is fearful like them. And sometimes they look and ask a lot of people for their advice, their opinion. They want to know their role. Their communication style is agreeable, and their drive is to seek the common good and to have reassurance and support.
All right. So, Jana, if I'm looking at this, then they're like type 6, they're trustworthy, but they can also be kind of anxious and indecisive. They like to play the devil's advocate. They question authority. They need control. And sometimes they think about these worst case scenarios. And maybe their growth path is to build trust in others. Would that be something that you would say?
Yeah, and also just to have courage in themselves and to trust their inner knowing. Um, is definitely a growth path for type 6. Yeah.
All right. So let's go to type 7. Let's do this.
So type 7s, these are called the enthusiasts or the epicure, and they bring joy to the world. They love new possibilities and they want to experience them all. Sometimes when they anticipate of the, what's coming up next, they miss that present moment and sometimes can bury the emotions that they're feeling. So they delight in all possibilities. Life is like a buffet. They want to try a bunch of different things. But they are afraid of not having enough. And they can be masters of denial and get distracted easily, but they are charming and they have this beautiful way of uplifting people around them. And they dread kind of being boring. So anticipation is everything. And sometimes after an event happens, they're already moving on and planning the next. Life is kind of lived in their head. They need spontaneity. I like the saying, beginnings are fun for type 7s. The middle is sticky and the ending is excruciating. So
So I'm a type 7. So I was trying to take copious notes. Definitely don't want to be boring. Definitely love to look forward to things. And the minute something's over, I am literally the one who's in an airport, and when the trip is over, I'm looking for flights for my next trip. I'm Googling where I can get my next really good deal. So I am so guilty of this. So enthusiasts, I like to be uplifting, can sometimes be in denial. What's my motivation? What's my underlying motivation?
Your motivation is to have freedom and avoid missing out.
So I want freedom and I don't, I have a fear of missing out. What is that? FOMO.
FOMO, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I want freedom. And what's my growth path on this one?
So as a type 7, they're very future oriented. And so coming to the present, sitting through some feelings that sometimes are hard, the sticky feelings. And then I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of, sobriety is the path of not having all of that stimulus and kind of coming to the present and feeling the feelings, which isn't always fun for type 7s.
What? I know. Sit with those feelings. No, thank you. All right. Even though I tell other people to do that.
Right.
Did I say hypocrite? Okay. So let's move on to type 8.
Okay, so type 8 is the challenger. They bring power to the world. So they pursue both justice and truth, and they like to keep everything under control. They want to make important things happen. They're not afraid of big decisions, and they will fight for the underdog. Sometimes they can be seen as confrontational and intimidating. Another word is called the boss. They don't necessarily want to be in charge, but they don't want you to be in charge of them. They have lots of energy. And when they were kids, innocence didn't work and they were rewarded for their strength. They're great cheerleaders if you give 100%, but if you don't give 100%, they'll probably stop supporting you. They don't want you to beat around the bush. They want you to give straight facts. They are seldom afraid. They're only afraid of vulnerability. Their communication style is blunt, direct, and truthful. And they have a drive to resist vulnerability and to make sure that they can exercise power and control.
All right. So I hear those type 8s, they can be kind of challenging. They can challenge you. They don't necessarily want to be vulnerable. They don't necessarily want to be the boss, but they don't want you to boss them around. But they are great cheerleaders. They are very straightforward. You're always going to know how they think. I hear a little bit of me in this. I don't want to be the boss, but I don't necessarily want to be bossed around. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn to be vulnerable in my life because I was always rewarded for being very strong, always having it together. So I had to learn to be vulnerable. So I love that. I love how you describe that. Let's move on to the last one. Let's do type 9.
Okay. So type 9 kind of at the end here is the peacemaker, and they bring peace to the world. They're stable, optimistic, supportive. They dislike conflict and tension, and they want everything to go smoothly, sometimes even simplifying problems. They can avoid conflict. They are great at avoiding conflict. And They sometimes set aside their own needs and merge. They talk to anybody. They're loyal. They probably actually won't reach out to you. They're considered the least complex number. What you see is what you get. They go along to get along. They stay kind of out of your business. They see both sides of conflict, and but can be passive aggressive. Sometimes decisions take a long time, and they struggle with procrastination. And their communication style, though, is easygoing, and they have a drive to avoid all conflicts. And they want to have peace and preserve the status quo.
All right. So the great thing about nines is that they're peacemakers. They see both sides. They want everybody to get along. But maybe the disadvantage is they can be kind of conflict avoidant, which can make them kind of passive aggressive because they can float on both sides of the fence. And people like that can make other people crazy if they want to know exactly where you stand. But those people who are a type 9 are like, well, I can't do that because I've got, my way of keeping peace is to not take a side or to not feel strongly about something. And again, this builds understanding. Trainers, instructors, this is my goal, is that we're using the Enneagram to build understanding, that when you look at a type 9, you're like, well, that makes me crazy. Yes, but at the same time, some of our clients are going to show up as this person. And if we can have empathy that some of our characteristics might make them crazy, then we can see the world through a broader lens and know that we all have qualities and characteristics that resonate with other people and that don't resonate with other people. But as trainers, we want to show up as people who get along with all personality types and who can welcome them with open arms and have enough intelligence to say, it's okay that you're not like me. As a matter of fact, I like that. You challenge me. And I know now I have a better understanding of how you move through the world so I can work with you and meet your needs better. That was my goal for these 2 sessions. And if I met that goal, please do let me know. So Janna, I'm talking to Janna. She's an Enneagram coach and she's also a nurse. Janna, I have just a couple of ending questions for you before we end this episode. Is it possible for you to really quickly, since you did the 3 centers of intelligence, is it possible for you to very quickly synopsize those 9 types? In other words, like type 1, 2, 3 goes in head type. Can you do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So type 2, 3, and 4 are in the heart center of intelligence. Type 5, 6, and 7 is the head center of intelligence. And lastly, 8, 9, and 1 are in that body or that gut center of intelligence.
Okay. That helps. I think that helps a lot. You also answered another one of my questions. You said 4 was the more rare one. And the main thing is you talked about the motivations and also the growth points. So in other words, the sticking points, the growth points are sticking points. Not that we are flawed, but that we have ways that we can grow through understanding our personality and ways that we can help our clients grow. And also just, how we match other people in our world and having greater empathy and compassion for ourselves and for them. So Janna Thomason, thank you so much. Thanks for the work that you do as a nurse, but also thanks for the work that you do as an Enneagram coach. I want to leave one last word with all of you trainers out there. If you take the Enneagram, I took the WEPS, WEPSS, it cost me $10. There's also, I believe, Trilogy, Janna said, which is free. When you take it, they send you a bunch of results. What you can do then is deep dive. You can order a book about it. You can read articles about it, or you can hire a coach to help you better understand yourself if you're so interested. But this should give you a really, really good foundation and understanding. And I hope you do it. I hope that you take my session at Optima on emotional intelligence. And I hope that you really, really consider the benefit of building our emotional intelligence, the benefit of understanding who we are and how we navigate the world so that we can really embrace all types of people and help all types of people get fit. So thank you again, Janna. Thank you to our NASM and AFA audience. We will see you next time.